We have all synchronized.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of The Magic Box. I am Tristan Sean Gregson, here with Kyle Eck. Exciting times?
The beginning of exciting times, for sure.
This whole year is exciting times, right? Magic in 2013, the 20th anniversary, products ramming up your butt every other month, it feels like.
Interesting. That is a very aggressively...
Well, it's a very aggressive marketing campaign for Wizards of the Coast. That's how I feel.
An aggressively sexual marketing campaign for some reason.
They're just... I feel like we never stop talking about new sets right now. I feel like...
I definitely feel like with the amount of stuff, especially like the specialty stuff, you know, from the vault.
Oh, man. I've really got to get the...
dual decks.
I have a plan for the you-know jar. I want to bring in like a mason jar and like just like a tub of pennies, and then I'm just gonna sit here and plink one in for every you-know, and then we'll eventually donate it for gamers. What is it? Gamers helping gamers.
Child's Play.
Yeah. Well, that'll be my goal. Hi, Ninja Bob. You are the first one to chat tonight in the chat room. Thanks to Twitch's new setup, which we don't like. It's nigh impossible for us to figure out who's in the channel with us. So be loud and be active so we know you're here. Well, yeah, but it gets messed up as it doesn't refresh very often.
Yeah.
It used to be, during the heyday of this show, when we would get upwards of 50 to 75 live viewers. We really kept track.
In my day.
And nowadays it's really hard to say.
This was all orchards.
But we're like 4 deep on new topics as the room begins to populate. So I will say, yes, the Eck you-know jar. And I need to find my own equivalent of that, because I think it's only fair.
It's the being derisive jar.
That one's a little harder to get.
Because I can't find a jar large enough.
See, this is all good. And this just comes from experience of podcasting more. My whole thought, Eck's not a talker by nature. You're more of an actions man.
Yeah. I don't know. I was trying to... Yeah.
Yeah.
Man of action.
Yeah. Usually electronic, high-speed clicking action. Your best... kind of game experience has really been with WoW, you'd probably say, right?
In terms of, like, extensive game experience?
Would you call it anything else?
No, it was certainly expensive.
I mean, you were
it was a dark time in my life.
I don't want to mince words. You were like a guild leader, right?
Yeah.
And you guys had some, was it region firsts, or...
Server firsts.
Server firsts.
In our backwoods-ass crappy server, but I digress.
I don't know.
I played a lot of WoW. I don't like to talk about it because it was a dark time in my life.
It's not a dark... I mean,
I was basically a heroin addict, except that I played Blizzard instead of a guy on the street.
The irony is that I lived with you, like, on and off during that phase, so I saw, like, different phases.
Right, the dark spiral.
I saw when you were, like, you were just the crackhead on the corner, like, somebody else was feeding you.
And then eventually...
you were the guy who was the enabler.
Right.
Feeding other people. Like, you were the dawn of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like Ultima Online. I mean, I wouldn't go as deep with any of these things. My point is that, this is a rough process. We're learning through how to do the conversation best. I cut him off a lot. He repeats himself a lot. You say the you-knows. Because I go back and I listen to our shows and I try to,
this is, like, basically the only form of, like, public speaking I do. I'm more used to being, like, I don't feel like I'm weird or awkward in conversation.
No, one-on-one you're great.
And, like, even in groups, like, I feel like I talk like a normal human being and all that. But then, like, when we're sitting here, I'm either just kind of like, yep, I agree. Or just like, here's a point, the end.
Well, it's hard because you got to remember, it's not always a conversation between just the two of us. We're talking to an audience, and it's always difficult to gauge, how educated that audience is. Maybe you're somebody that's never queued before. Maybe you're somebody that's like, You're hearing all this stuff we're saying, you're like, dude, I'm way past that. I know all about this stuff. Tell me about go as deep as you can, because I've already been there, and you're probably not going to get deep enough. So finding that mix can oftentimes be difficult. So thanks for bearing with us during this time. I really feel like when it comes to podcasting and doing shows, step one is consistency, being there all the time, making sure you always put out a product. And we've gone through some rough times. Our schedules have changed drastically in the last 6 or 8 months. So we're kind of weathering that storm, but we're getting it done. We're not the best. I'm not going to say we've been 100% consistent, but we're getting it done.
I feel like we're pretty high success rate.
Not as good as we should be. No. If we were treating this like a job, like a love plus job,
it'd be a very poor paying job.
Well, obviously,
labor of love.
Exactly. But at the same time, we've made it over the hump. I think once you pass like 20, 25 podcast episodes, you're no longer in with the ruffians where it's like, oh, my friends and I got together and we
it's
all...
like it's the baseball season analogy. I like talking about baseball. I'm always wearing Giant shirts. We're out of
work it in. This is going to become your character.
We're out of March and April. Now we're into the grind, the dog days of summer, as it were.
Oh,
right. We've gotten out of the early. We've passed spring training. We've passed the early part of the season.
I mean, my only confusion on that analogy is that would assume that we eventually get to some kind of postseason.
Well, isn't there like a podcast like deathmatch?
Oh, I thought there was a Hall of Fame. Maybe I don't think there was either of those things actually.
We should.
Would you want a death match?
We should have like one of these cons or something. Just get all the podcasters together and just like
battle. We don't have a whole lot of competition. I gotta tell you. Play-wise, maybe not here on the mic. Maybe during the mic drop competition, we'll get a little worked by some other famouser.
Right, but then we hit them with the mic after they drop it.
That's not our game. It's not our game.
Anyway.
There's some big guys out there.
Yeah.
So eventually we came.
I saw the guys from Brainstorm Brewery at GP Oakland.
Yeah, you should have gone to the O2 Drought Party from Kevi Meta.
I didn't even know.
I know. I should have told you about it. My bad.
I would have communicated more. I was planning on I'm going to the event. I will tweet about it. And, I started to do that, and my phone was dead by noon, which, if anyone was there, also realizes was round 2, because the event was a little slow getting out of the blocks. So, but it was a lot of fun. I did actually get some hands-on with Murray and Kenny from Cube Vault.
Kenny, who messaged me about being on about Cube Vault, and we kind of dropped the ball on. So I apologize for that, Kenny. Had we had more timing, better timing... instead, we'll have to give you the Eck field report.
Yeah, so we've been talking about Cube Vault Kickstarter for the last couple shows. It's got 4 days left. They have hit their goal, but you can still get in and get one. According to Murray, who I talked to extensively at GP Oakland, there will be 250 of these made and no more. So if you want one, getting it on the ground floor is definitely a good idea. It's not going to be something where they're going to make 10,000 of them and you can pick them up at your local game store. They are not going to get resold, ostensibly. They're limited edition kind of collector's item.
What you're saying is this Kickstarter isn't to start a new brand.
No, this is
to make a one-time.
And really, in talking with Murray, he explained it really well. He cubes. He wanted something like this. He did the math and figured out what it would cost, and then decided that if he wants it, other people would want it too. Put it out to the community, and the community responded. So that's really what this is. This is player-driven. There is a demand for this and a desire for it to exist.
All right, cut the commercial part. Let's talk about the field report. You're hands-on with it. What do you think?
He had some prototypes there. It's lighter than it looks, which is an important part.
Does that mean we're sacrificing the sturdiness because of
that? No, it felt very solid. It was a prototype, so it wasn't fully
decked out.
Right, but it was very well put together. The dividers, and this, these parts in the middle, they felt very solid. Nothing really moved around. The liner is a very cool touch. He had a couple different fabrics and liners there. Snakeskin, it was an option he was showing off.
Interesting.
He mentioned someone had told him was going to get Louis Vuitton fabric and line the inside of his key box with that.
That is an appropriate choice.
Which is pretty baller. The handle is a fantastic thing. It's basically just a big lunchbox, if you think about it. It's not like a briefcase. It's not...
So for people at home trying to size up this situation,
it feels like
bigger than a lunchbox, smaller than a briefcase.
It feels like you're carrying a laptop from 1992.
Oh, okay. Kind of that compact IBM feel.
Right, the IBM ThinkPad that's like this thick. Like that kind of thing.
For the people at home, when he says this thick, he means like 2 inches.
So it's not, with a cube in it, you could absolutely carry it around all day. But it's compact enough that you could fit it in a bag if you wanted to.
And that's really the goal. I mean, I think that if we wanted to have, I think this would be like a portable version for us. Like, we have more of the humidor-style cube case.
And that's kind of what we talked about is, we have a box, but it's not convenient to carry to events. There's no handle on it. It's huge. It's really heavy. Another thing that's awesome is he's modified ever so slightly the dimensions a little bit.
Okay.
It's been getting adjusted over time. So it does fit Legion deck boxes, a dozen of them. So, for example, if you're really into EDH or you just carry a lot of deck boxes, you could fit all your decks in this thing and carry that instead.
So if for some reason you manage to wander into this conversation and don't cube draft, and would also be interested in throwing down just over $100
or you've already
products,
you've already got a cube box solution. You
can never have too many.
You can fit dice containers in there.
So final thoughts, hands-on. What are your, like? Is this a home run? Is there elements you think it's just missing and could add to it?
If I had a cube, like personally, not yours, or we didn't have a box already that we use on a regular basis,
if it was still a cardboard 2-row,
I would snap by one of these because at $100,
which is all $100. That price point's all gone. You can't get them $100 anymore.
Oh, okay. So $125 even. $125 is, I mean, barely more than 2 rounds of sleeves.
Well, it kind of depends. Let me see. No.
Plus, double sleeving?
Yeah, if you're going to double sleeve. Like, to re-sleeve our cube as it is right now is about $50. So, 2, maybe a little bit more for the for a box that is going to last you forever, right? It's not like sleeves where it's going to wear out. Right. No, I mean, we've mentioned it again. If you have a powered cube or a rares cube, this cost is a drop in the bucket. And we're so many years removed from having to rebuy cardboard boxes. It's hard to say how much we spent on outer casing for the cube.
True,
but this is a one-time thing.
It's also, I mean,
the logo isn't. Was the logo a done deal? Is what you see the finished product? Do you think?
So yeah, in talking with Murray, the logo he wants to adjust potentially having the size of it.
Okay.
So he was talking about instead of having this giant logo right here, he wants to maybe have a smaller logo instead, just right here.
And then maybe label it or something, or maybe not label. I don't know. The other thing is you kind of skirt the line between having anonymity of your cube versus kind of putting this big thing out there this is expensive and worth taking.
Well, one of the things Murray wanted to avoid and is not doing is he didn't want to sell them blank with the intent of a reseller buying a bunch of them and then selling them in their store with their branding on it.
That makes sense.
So
that would explain the logo,
because that kind of defeats the point, So this is a Cube Vault thing. This is their logo. It's on the dice. It's on the sleeves.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to walk into, mom and pop the dice barn or something and go and see they've plastered their logo on this thing, selling it for $250 out the door.
So I understand and you could put your own. Again, you could put your own stickers on it. You could even repaint it if you draw on it, whatever you wanted to do. The feel of the box is really nice. It's like a matte. It's not glossy. It's like a matte finish. The snaps are nice. One side is a lock. One side is just a normal. And if you don't want to lock it, you can just leave the combo blank or base or whatever. The handle is super sturdy. And I picked up his that had a cube in it. It never felt like it was.
Did you do the Gorilla test?
Yeah.
To bang it on a corner?
It totally...
What was that luggage? Was that Samsonite back in the day?
Probably.
A little older than us.
So, I definitely think if you're in the market at all for the ability... Especially if you transport your cube a lot, to shows, this is absolutely the way to go.
If you travel and play Magic with your cube, if you... Even if you... If we F&M'd it every week with the cube, I would still want to have access to a product like this.
Yeah.
Just for transport.
Again, if we didn't have the giant...
The humidor. I like to call it the humidor.
If we didn't have the humidor, I would be snapping up one of these. This would be your Christmas present.
Well, it still could be.
Instantaneously. Well, it would be my Christmas present because I wouldn't have to carry the humidor.
We both just had a birthday. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, well, I think that we've serviced Kenny and Murray quite a bit there. Again, this is not our Kickstarter project. We don't see a dime of this, so
I just think it's a great project.
No, definitely, it's friends of ours who I think are putting something great out there. So I feel like we're a broken record at this point, especially if you've listened to all 3 weeks where we've talked about this thing. I want to get off the topic, but again, I think it's great to have. And for people that I know, the cube, it's just something to protect your stuff in the long term. And I would hate for anything to happen, damage, theft. Lost car on a box. Anything could happen.
In a lot of cubes, if you get
I've heard about that.
If you get 2 cards damaged, that's more than the cost of this box.
Depends.
Depending on the card.
Right.
So, Anyway, let's get into the stuff. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. How about a pick one, pack one?
Yeah, obviously more exciting than Theros spoilers. Let's
Clearly,
be real.
this is what everybody's here for.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
So, pick one, pack one. This week's pack: Skin Render, Magus of the Scroll, Baleful Strix, Inquisition of Kozilek, Eternal Witness, Armageddon, Ranger of Eos, Oblivion Ring, Treetop Village, Martial Coup, Undead Gladiator, Greater Gargadon, Cascade Bluffs, Engineered Explosives, Volcanic Island.
Man, looking at this pack ever so briefly, it's like white cards and red-blue fixing.
Right?
It's hard not to take Oblivion Ring just because it's kind of this catch-all answer that's only a single white. I feel like if I want to be slightly saucier, I would jump on that Armageddon. And those are like... I don't think...
Can we just talk briefly about how sweet Baleful Strix is?
Tis a good card.
I love that thing.
I wish I could remember. There's a gentleman by the name of Nathan. He lives in the Seattle area. So Baleful Strix came out in Arch Enemy. Or not, was it Arch Enemy? It was Plane Chase 2012.
Yeah, something like that.
And Plane Chase 2012 was coming out the same week I was getting on the Magic Cruise.
Okay.
So I did not get a chance to get my hands on the product.
Okay.
So we get on the cruise.
They didn't have any on the cruise?
Actually, it's ironically they did,
okay.
But they were Wizards employees, like they had got them ahead of time. Well, so we got to play with them. We didn't get to keep them.
Okay.
So anyway, Nathan, who cubes in Seattle and is a cube enthusiast, he actually has tweeted us many times. Since it's an uncommon, his had multiple copies.
Okay.
This is because it's not the rare.
Right.
So if you get the precon, you get more than one. So Nathan graciously gave me one out of his box. He's like, we're on the ship. You know you want to put this in your cube.
Yeah.
Toss it in there.
Awful kind.
So not only did he give me one, he gave me one that was miscut, which is already pretty cool.
Okay.
It's not like super miscut, but it's a little more rare. And then just the other day, I found out this card's up to like almost $20.
It's another penny in the jar. It just does like just enough on so many different fronts.
I think that you really hit the nail on the head because it covers so many bases.
Right.
It looks innocuous, but it does.
It draws a card, so you could blink it and get cards with it. It trades with anything. It can carry equipment really well. It says flying. It only costs 2 mana.
And the Death Touch.
Yeah. It's an artifact for Tinker.
An artifact for blocking guys with fear.
Right. It just does. It just does a lot. I just really, really, really like Baleful Strix.
The big question is, could it ever be a first pick?
I mean, it could.
Could it?
It would be a bad.
I can't imagine a world where Baleful
Strix. I believe there is a
statistic
that. Well, okay. Baleful Strix is not the 15th. Is not the like in the bottom 15 cards of the cube.
No.
So you could theoretically design a worst of pack.
Okay.
Right?
I see what you're getting at.
So
by that logic, yes. End of the day here, quick picks. Oblivion Ring.
I think it's just Oblivion Ring.
Yeah. I don't think this
Volcanic Island is probably the only other card I would consider.
Really? I would definitely consider Armageddon.
Especially with the fact that you've already got Ranger, Oblivion Ring, and Martial Coup. People downwind of you are going to be moving into white in both the control and aggressive format.
Well, Martial Coup has no overlap with Armageddon. In fact, you're hoping someone takes and plays that card.
No, but they're still going to fight you for white, like good cards.
I guess for all the Oblivion Rings you'll see in all the later packs.
Right.
I think there's not a whole lot much to point out there. I think it's an easy Oblivion Ring. My second pick behind it might be Eternal Witness, might be Greater Gargadon. I guess that's third pick behind. Was Armageddon would be my second pick. Either way, we've figured.
I think I like Skin Render more than I like Eternal Witness.
Whoa.
I've been on a pretty heavy black slant lately.
All right, well let's just leave that one alone. Let's go to Scenario 1 for today.
All right, Scenario 1. I don't know who's drafting this draft.
Oh, we do actually.
We do?
Yeah, we do. This is actually viewer submissions.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
he walked ass backwards into this one, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
This is Jake Jones, I believe, from the internet.
The wide world of the internet.
Oh, no, Portland, Oregon, actually. Portland, Oregon. I've even narrowed it down. It's like I'm setting myself up for these bad boys. He submitted, he was drafting our cube, I believe, on Cube Tutor, which you guys should definitely check out. Find us there. Up our draft count, up our deck count, up our view count, all that stuff. It really helps us out.
So this is what his draft looks like.
And he is asking for some discussion on this particular pack.
Thus far, his cards include Far and Away, Man of War, Vampire Nighthawk, Dismember.
And I got to stop you right there, because what's wrong with that? Because you were saying you know who drafted this deck. Those look like some fine cards.
First picking Far and Away, second picking Man of War.
All right, it's a little sketchy.
A little questionable.
All right, it's a little sketchy.
Didn't see those packs, obviously, but
you know, there's the whole like there could be the 15 bottom cards.
right, exactly.
Okay.
It could have just been the
All
worst.
right, so he's got some blue black, some tempo stuff.
The pack he is past now. Hellion Crucible, Clifftop Retreat, Duress, Maelstrom Wanderer, Rampant Growth, Mishra's Factory, Shadowborn Demon, Avenger of Zendikar, Compulsive Research, Scepter of Dominance, Recoil. What do we like here?
I like Shadowborn Demon here.
I also like Shadowborn Demon. I've been meaning to play more with that card. I think it's very good. And another thing is that I feel like given the cards we have right now, we really want to be black, and we might want to be blue.
I'm looking at the cards I see right now. I really want to find the Crystal Shard.
Sure. I mean, that would certainly be sweet. But
and the Recoil, the Cube Miser over in the chat over there, Recoil could very likely wheel, and that would be big for us.
This is a pretty weak pack.
Well, there's a dual land, there's a draw spell.
Like, the bottom three cards are definitely going to be Hellion Crucible, Maelstrom Wanderer, and X, which is probably Duress.
We're happy. I think we might even be happier with the Duress than we are with the Recoil.
I think we're fine with either. But I think that Shadowborn Demon is an excellent card for this kind of deck. We don't really... My thing about Compulsive Research is... I've been talking a lot about on this show recently about, like, how anti-clunky I am. And 3-mana sorcery speed draw spells are very clunky. And unless you're taking advantage of the discard aspect, like you're playing Reanimator, Compulsive Research is not necessarily a card I'm thrilled about. And that's in base blue decks, and we kind of, I think, are looking to be more base black.
I don't
We
know.
already have a Nighthawk,
But if you take that Nighthawk out of the equation, you have a colorless removal spell and 2 blue cards.
a Gray Ogre, and a split card.
Either way, we're in agreement here on Shadowborn Demon, and I don't know. I think that
I think if I were to go in order, I would go Shadowborn Demon, Recoil, Compulsive, Duress.
Compulsive is definitely my number 2, but that's just because I'm a card advantage monger and a blue mage all the time.
Right.
That is definitely
That's where we diverge.
I mean, that's definitely how I won last week's draft.
I think Shadowborn Demon here is a pretty clear pick. The card is just very...
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Even if you don't necessarily have any way to...
Abuse him?
Abuse him, he could just be a hot dog and eat himself.
If he has to be.
Yeah, it'd be delicious.
The 5 mana, it's like kind of like having Detain almost. Like, if it was like...
It's like 5 mana, destroy target creature,
like
prevent all combat damage.
Yeah, kind of like that. Like, and we're not talking like Doomblade a guy. We're talking like pretty much kill anything.
Yeah, what's it?
It's non-demon.
Non-demon?
Yeah.
So, you've got all the demons.
99.9% of creatures.
You're not getting Gristle. Not getting Big Grizzy.
No Chameleon Colossus for you tonight.
Well, for a myriad of reasons.
Yeah.
Also not getting Bait Slayer Angel. Consistently failing the Bait Slayer Angel test.
It's really a testament to how good Baneslayer Angel is.
It's funny how often that wording comes up. like Halo Hunter also.
Yeah,
just the jokiest one.
So disappointing. So what's scenario 2? This is also from Mr. Jones.
So in this scenario...
Now, does this one make sense to you?
This is a saucy brew so far.
Okay, go for it.
Recurring Nightmare, Faithless Looting, Bitter Blossom, Bituminous Blast, and the pack we are past is Polluted Delta, Gorehouse Chainwalker, Arbor Elf, Ambition's Cost, Rampant Growth, Fleshbag Marauder, Wildfire, Oath of Ghouls, Winter Orb, Gerard's Verdict, Tarmogoyf.
So the easy answer seems like Fleshbag Marauder. I think that's first level thinking. Second level thinking, I feel like it's like Gorehouse Chainwalker.
Is it wrong to want to go deep on and take Oath of Ghouls when we don't have a creature yet? Is that too deep? Have I gone too deep?
I don't know. I think you've named... I mean, granted, Bituminous blasting into Fleshbag Marauder is also a bit of a letdown.
It might be. It might be really good.
You're just going to sack the guy you target with Bituminous Blast.
Oh, right. That's poor.
So I'm just thinking, like, just like Batuminous blasting into faithless looting is also I don't know how awkward that is or isn't. I guess that's all right.
Like Fleshbag is very good with Bitter Blossom.
Fleshbag is very good with Recurring Nightmare. Yeah, Fleshbag might even be good with Recurring Nightmare with faithless looting. So again, I think that's first level thinking. I think that card like Gorehouse Chainwalker is my second level where it's like this is gonna be a beatdown deck, and I think that the you can never go wrong safe pick is just taking fetch land.
I mean, Polluted Delta clearly is the safe pick, and no one's gonna fault
the
you.
chat completely agrees with that line of play.
Yeah.
I think
The chat is mono Delta.
Yeah, they don't want to be exciting or different at all. They just want to take Polluted
They
Delta.
are taking the road more traveled.
Yeah.
I just all I think about anymore is cube drafting Oath of Ghouls and Oversold Cemetery decks.
And I gotta tell you,
I just go so deep all the time.
Until the Oversold Cemetery Oath of Ghouls thing really like catches on mainstream.
I keep trying. I keep trying to draft that deck and talk it up as much as I can to try and
Well, you're still doing that.
I know.
You're doing a good job.
I'm trying.
We only reach so many people right now.
I know.
One day, but I'm saying right now, Oath of Ghouls is the Oath of Ghouls Oversold Cemetery package is so underrepresented in Cube that a lot of times you can get away with extra percentage points on Oath of Ghouls where your opponents just don't return guys when they should be.
Right.
So you've got that working for you, I guess. I still think that it's Fleshbag Marauder. It's pretty easy Fleshbag Marauder right here for me.
I just want to take Oath and go crazy. I'm taking Oath. I'm going crazy. I'm doing it. I really wish I could now finish drafting this deck so I can just go bananas.
Cards
take
are willing to take
guys
over
for the
fetch
rest of
land.
this draft.
Yeah, I mean it's true. Card that I'm willing to take over fetch land. I just feel like I'm getting into a scenario where I'm kind of building an engine, and that's where I want a card like Fleshbag Marauder over a fetch land. We have found a scenario where taking the clearly never bad card is going to be slightly trumped by the ability to start to make synergies and build a deck around this concept.
In a vacuum, clearly you were never taking Fleshbag Marauder over Polluted Delta.
Yeah, however, if you just hid the top 4 cards
in a deck where you're already looking to emphasize sacrifice and recursion strategies and are black, Fleshbag Marauder becomes a lot more attractive.
Replace that Recurring Nightmare with Reanimate or Animate Dead. And I definitely want that fetch land.
Yeah, sure.
That's like a totally different meatball, but you get the idea.
Replace that Bitter Blossom with anything.
I think you kind of have to replace the Recurring Nightmare. Once you have Recurring Nightmare, like Fleshbag Marauder's value goes way up. It's like you just have the ability to kind of like take out
you sack a guy, they sack a guy.
With your entire opponent's board. So, well, we didn't agree on this one, I guess. But you ended up just going off the deep end for no good reason.
This is like my... Making this deck awesome is like my white whale right now. I feel like I already accomplished what I needed to with Orzhov.
Everyone on the internet knows that you can draft black, white, and cube, and it's good. Eck has made it so.
Yeah.
So he's on to the next challenge.
I'm on to the next challenge.
He's just a wanderer from village to village. Like,
bad deck to bad deck.
Who is that man? It's like, he taught us the ways of black-white control. Why didn't he stay? Because his teachings were done, young one.
Yeah. Have you all ever grid drafted? We have grid drafted. I don't know if I like it more than Winston drafting for heads-up cubing. It's certainly different, and I think that having a little variety every once in a while is nice.
I will be bold and say that Winston drafting is still my favorite form of heads-up drafting. Grid drafting, I'm not that big of a fan of in the heads-up format, but actually in the team format, I like it a lot more.
Yeah.
I would almost say that grid drafting is probably at its best in a 2v2. Because we've like 4-man Rochestered a good number of times, and I think that's a spot where grid might actually have the upper hand.
Yeah, I think 1v1 I like Winston, 2v2 I like grid, and 3v3 I like Rochester.
Oh, Team Roch with 6-man all day long.
The Cadillac of formats.
Yeah.
I think my experience with grid drafting heads up is that a lot of times it kind of just feels like you're playing a sealed deck. Like you just end up with this giant pile of like...
It gets real awkward.
Well, you just end up with like a large quantity of cards that are not focused in any way. It's very rare that you're like actively drafting a deck. You're just taking like the best pile of good cards. And
actively drafting a deck and not having your opponent hating on it, but also having your opponent also draft a deck.
Right. You just end up with like both players just like, oh, I'm going to take this pile of good cards, and then like
no, I didn't really get into white, and all of a sudden there's an Elspeth. I'm just going to take that, and then the next one it's like, oh no, there's the whatever.
So I like Winston more for 1v1, but I think for 2v2, I think it's definitely more interesting.
Yeah, I'm not completely.
They hate drafting and things like that become a lot more relevant.
Yeah. So, Theros spoilers.
You want to talk about those?
Constantly keeping us from talking about real cube topics. Instead, there's all these new cards coming out all the time.
New ones.
If you ship to the bottom of that, or if you ship lower on that page, we haven't missed anything else in the interim.
No, it's just these 6 cards.
Okay. This time on a seemingly 4/5 vanilla for 5.
And Thuza Setessan Hero, 3 green for a 4/5 legendary human warrior.
Yeah, never saying that.
Heroic. When you cast a spell that targets it, up to 3 target lands you control. Each become 2/2 warrior creatures until end of turn. They're still lands. I'm a little sad they did not put the with haste.
I'm a little sad it says you control.
Well, right. I thought that we were moving into a territory where when you animated lands, they got haste, i.e. Awaken the Ancient, to prevent the I animated my summoning sick land with Koth, or, all the different variants of that. So I'm a little bummed about that, but that's a very nitpicky thing. This swings for a lot.
So you Rancor it and you attack for 12?
Yeah, Rancor attack for 12 is a big, big game.
Are we? The question is: are we living in the real world? Or are we living in this magical?
I feel like we're living in magical Christmas land, but it lives through wildfire, right?
Oh, again, if it targeted your opponent's lands, it would be the nut high. You would cast it. You would giant growth it or whatever. You'd make 3 of their lands into 2/2s, and you cast wildfire.
Wouldn't they just sack those lands?
It depends on what order the card is worded in.
The lands are still in play because creatures do not go to the graveyard.
Oh, you're right. Oh, damn it.
I tried though.
All right, that's garbage.
Speaking of wildfire,
hate that card.
Trash, get it out of here. Speaking of wildfire, however, Ember Swallower
going to already be the
Michael Bolin wins the analysis of this card though on Facebook today. Strict upgrade from Ember Spitter.
I don't even remember what that card does.
That's not the point.
Oh,
that's the joke. Yeah. So I really like this guy.
I've been gotten.
You've been gotten. I like this guy. Obviously not the most aggressive 4 cost red guy.
You're so greedy these days. Just because this card doesn't have haste.
He lives with wildfire. He lives through wildfire. He has a late game ability that is also mildly wildfire.
All right. So what puts this guy in our ballpark isn't the fact that it's the fact that he's got a big butt.
He cannot lie.
Because you got to remember, the things he's competing with are the Keldon Champions, Blistering Firecats, Hell Riders, Flame Tongue Kavus of the world.
You're thinking about it wrong. He's not competing with those cards. He's competing with Tefferderm.
That guy's gone.
Covetous Dragon.
That guy I think is also leaving.
Like the cards that are specifically there for wildfire, which is this guy. He's
True.
not like the aggro red deck is not going to be super thrilled to see this card, but the red control deck is going to be fucking stoked.
Which you are dead on. I'm not. This card will make the cube. It just when people are evaluated, they can't match it up against the cards I just mentioned.
It's not Hellrider, but it shouldn't just because the costs are the same does not mean that you should be analyzing it in that way.
Right.
It's for a different deck.
So once we've gotten past the initial hurdle of
that's like comparing Wrath of God to Hero Bladehold. They're for very clearly divergent decks.
Well, one is a creature, but okay. Wrath of God versus Opalescence or Moat.
Armageddon versus Moat.
All right,
sure. They're for very different decks.
We've gotten past the hurdle of this card we want in the cube. Let's talk about: is it so one-dimensional that it's just we have a very efficient costed 4/5 for 4, or is the monstrosity? How often do you think that's really going to play in?
I mean, the fact that you can do it as an instant means it's not nearly as bad as it would be otherwise.
It seems like the triple tremor, more often than not, isn't going to get the job done. But I'm hoping that triple tremor
huge
in conjunction with making your guys
7 is very often going to be the biggest thing on the board.
Right.
And I think that even the red aggressive deck will play this card if it comes down to it. It's not going to not play it.
That's what makes this card so cubable, is that it's not so one-dimensional. We've talked about that when we did our episode on Red. We want there to be versatility and diversity and the ability for...
It's just hard because the cards tend to split so
Exactly.
hard.
Am I a burn spell or a creature that costs less than 4 mana? Do I have haste? Or am I a spell that costs more than 5
mana? Am I a dragon?
Yeah.
So I think this guy's good, and I think this guy will be in the cube. Next up, Abhorrent Overlord, 6/6 flyer for 7, 5 black. When Abhorrent Overlord enters the battlefield, put a number of 1/1 black heartbeat creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield equal to your devotion to black, which is the number of black mana costs among permanents you control. So
black mana symbols.
Black mana symbols, excuse me. So, for those of you paying attention, this is a reworked version of Chroma from Shadowmoor and Eventide. And I like the flavor a lot more. I think that's cool. It's basically just exactly the same thing.
The nice thing about these cards is that hypothetically they're going to do something, unlike kind of the Chroma cards, which were much more dependent on you already having a bunch of stuff. Like when I think of Chroma Magic cards, I think of long drawn out EDH games and cards like Primal Crux.
I just think they just weren't. Chroma was not on any good cards. I mean, that's part of the problem.
Right. And these can be on good cards because those cards can function outside of having Infinity Chroma.
Yeah. I don't really see this guy.
Oh, this guy is not making the cube. It's not about him.
He's cool.
It's about introducing us.
It's about what it implies.
Yeah, it's about introducing us to this mechanic that could really be deep. Mm-hmm. I feel like...
And it gets... there is some question of how deep it goes later on in these previews, in fact.
Yeah. As far as cube implementation goes, here's an opportunity to reward mono black, to reward mono green.
Also, things to pay attention to if they print cards with devotion on them that you are considering for cube, things to pay attention to especially are hybrid cards, because those are going to be very high impact sources of devotion, right? Things like Burning Tree Emissary, Boros Reckoner, Kitchen Finks.
Yeah, I feel kind of
Nightveil
bad.
Spectre.
Yeah, just put that guy on the chopping block.
Giants, Bogart Ram Gang.
Which we could bring in.
If there was a red devotion guy, those are going to be cards that are all going to be good.
I think as far as cube goes, the red devotion creature has the highest potential, probably followed then by the black one.
I think if there's an aggressive red or an aggressive black one, they both have the potential to be very, very scary. Shipbreaker Kraken. 4 blue for a 6/6 Kraken with a really sweet picture. Monstrosity 4 for 6 blue. And when it becomes monstrous, tap 4 guys and they don't untap as long as you control this thing. That's...
It's cute.
It's cute. Lorthos, the Tidemaker.
Yeah, I think what this card shows us isn't a cube card, but what I feel like it is it shows us kind of how we should expect all of Monstrosity to function.
Just giant,
Well, no, it's kind of like Invokers from Legions.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get hopefully an effective body early in the game.
And then
Polukranos kind of threw us for a bit of a loop.
Right. I think
it had the
that was one of the things about okay, now the cost of Monstrosity does not necessarily reflect the number on Monstrosity and stuff like that. It's a little the rules got cleared up a lot from this.
Yeah. So with a card like this isn't going to make the cube. But what we hope for, obviously Monstrosity, the keyword is...
Chat already bringing up Quest for Ula's Temple EDH, by the way.
Oh yeah, very popular already, even without additional crackenings. Where was I? So, the Invoker cycle from Legions was, you get something now, you have a body that's effective in game, and then late game when you've drawn all this mana and you've played all these lands, you're going to get a bigger, badder effect off the cards you're already playing, hopefully at a good cost. Now, the thing about Monstrosity is you're probably going to find it on monsters, so they're probably not going to see one...
They're not going to see 1 drops.
Yeah, 1 to 3 drops of Monstrosity.
Well, you might. You never know.
Exactly. It'd be
stuff like Landwar Elite.
How bad would a guy with who's a 1/1 or something with Monstrosity? How bad would that card have to be to have it not be considered? Because now you're talking about a Figure of Destiny style Magic card.
I think it depends entirely on what the trigger is.
What if it just got big and didn't do anything else?
just monstrosity like 4 for
like a one-shot level up. Like it was like kind of like the Hulk. Like Bruce Banner to the Hulk as a magic card.
I don't know. I'd have to think more about that.
Now I just want to see the Bruce Banner Hulk magic card.
Monstrosity.
Yeah, that'd be a sweet one.
It's a white creature, but monstrosity's for green mana.
Yeah, and turns into a green creature.
Yeah. So that guy probably not making it. But
so as meh as monstrosity has been, and we've kind of like we feel like we've dissected it, broken it up, understood it completely. We go completely the opposite direction with the bestow mechanic right now,
which is the new mechanic that kind of got premiered in these newest round of spoilers. So this card, Celestial Archon, 3 white, is an enchantment creature. So Lucid Limited probably making a comeback. Is a 4/4 flying first strike, which is already pretty sweet. It has bestow 5 white. And the ruling for bestow, if you have not seen it, is you may cast this card for its bestow cost instead of its regular mana cost, and if you do, it is an aura instead of with enchant creature. And it becomes a creature again if it is not attached to a creature. So what that means is, and this is confirmed by Aaron Forsyth and Matt Tabak, if you cast it with bestow targeting a guy and they kill the guy in response, it comes into play as a dude. If it comes into play on a dude and then they kill the guy, it becomes a 4/4. Like, so no matter what, the 4/4 flying first strike is coming into play. And that's really sweet.
Other than classic counterspell, this guy is going to do some house wrecking, which really makes up for the fact that, granted, the one bestow card we've seen is pretty expensive, but we assume the effects that are going to be powerful are going to be expensive, and this is actually something possibly worth paying for. Like I think this card is just a little out of range for Cube, and if this had been any lesser of a version of this mechanic, it would just be an immediate pass.
I mean, I think that mechanic is very powerful.
It has the potential to be very powerful.
I think that if it's at all reasonably costed ever on anything, it's going to be very, very good. I think that if they try and get aggressive with it, it's going to be very, very, very good, especially for Cube.
So when I was first looking at it, I was like, oh, well, it's like having this creature for 5, 4-power guy for 5, or for 7, you kind of give it haste.
Yeah.
More often than not, if you're getting what you want out of it, and that's huge for any color that's not red, because you kind of cheat the system there, and then you even get the kind of like a buyback effect.
You get like totem armor.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Right.
I think it's very good. I think this is one of the closest to Cube playable
fat cost mechanics.
In a long time, this is like very close. It's like not there, but it's so close.
And we've only seen a handful of cards out of this set. I mean, we kind of assume, considering how strong this is, that unless spells get a little bit of a boost, that I'm not expecting to see a whole lot more from this. But it's definitely exciting.
Yeah,
potential is there.
And the last card, spoiled, Thassa, God of the Sea. 2 and a blue for a 5/5 legendary enchantment creature, card type God.
Indestructible.
Indestructible 5/5 for 3. As long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, Thassa is not a creature. Which means she is just an enchantment, she's not a guy, she can't attack, she can't block, she can't be Doombladed, which is relevant.
Couldn't be Doombladed
well,
anyway.
Can't be Path Exile or whatever.
Okay.
At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1 and pay 1 and a blue. Target creature you control cannot be blocked this turn. Or is unblockable, I don't know. I don't think this wording is exactly...
No, they changed the wording for 13. So unblockable is no longer a keyword.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so this card, the first time I read it, two thoughts went through my head in consecutive order. The first was, man, this is really awesome. I'm already in love with this card. And the second one was, man, when is blue ever going to have 5 blue mana symbols in play?
Similar to when we
Teferi stock has just gone through the roof.
Yeah. If you're thinking about cutting Teferis from your cube, which I have been recently, it may be time to reconsider. Similar to the Black Devotion creature we saw earlier, this is territory I want to explore more, and this is the color I feel least excited about exploring it in. Because it's blue, and as far as Cube is concerned, now we're not talking about Magic in general, we're talking about Cube here. This card probably will not make the cut.
Someone just pointed out in chat also, Zur the Enchanter EDH.
Oh, you can tutor for any. You can tutor for any enchantment. Interesting. Now, like for cube formats, like how funky is it when you're like playing Delver of Secrets in this card and?
I mean, that would actually be good. Scry with Delver.
Oh, Scry with Delver.
And making it unblockable, like that's
you don't
fine.
Even make it unblockable. I'm just saying, like losing.
The problem is, it flips and then it doesn't have a blue mana.
It's so hard to get 5 blue mana symbols, and now you just lost another blue mana symbol.
That's the problem. If Vidalcan Shackles cost triple blue instead of 3 colorless or something.
Right.
I was saying, her Trident should cost just quad blue. That way, like, her plus the weapon is, like, online.
Oh, that would be cool. Kind of. Think of how, like, annoyed people would have been when they first saw the Trident.
Dude, this is awful. So, I think that... I don't think this one is good enough, just because of its color, but I think that, like, the red one or the black one, if they are similarly designed, are going to be very good.
We're mostly talking cube here. I think as far as, like, a format like Standard goes... things are going to be very different, and I have said before that I think that this is an excellent way to combat how much like coming off a set like Ravnica can kind of warp how players play decks. So I'm excited. Again, I'm excited by what it can do, but this particular card I don't see us playing.
No, I think that it's close.
You want to be playable in cube. Step 1, don't be blue.
Well, step 1, don't specifically refer to blue permanents because there just aren't any.
Right. If she got to like activate as long as Cryptic Command was on the stack.
Right. I mean,
that wouldn't be very good either.
Once you cast 5 blue spells, turn it on or something.
Yeah,
but as it stands, it's just not going to work.
Mono blue cube though.
Mono blue cube is online for that.
It's many binder pages at home.
Patron Wizard is just like licking his chops.
Is he? It was nothing dies in mono blue cube.
Yeah.
You get Pongified and that's it.
And Erratic Mutation.
Yeah, you get Erratic Mutation.
And Unstable Mutation.
Yeah, why aren't we doing this?
Why? Because that would be horrible.
It would just take a lot of time. Especially now that we've got access to the wonderful treasure trove of information that is Unpopular Cube.
Ah, yes. Unpopular Cube.
Rapid hybridization. There's a lot of cool stuff out there right now.
Unpopular Cube. Where is that? Pull it up.
Well, it was in the show notes that I sent you earlier, and now we're just burying the lead on my spectacular segue. So we've talked in the past about other various cube formats. On this show, we haven't talked extensively about Crap Cube, which was much more of a small-time venture and didn't include such powerhouses as things like Great Wall, just for the complete
Pale Moon,
complete blanking. So there was an article just yesterday, the timestamp being August the 27th here of 2013 for you listening far in the future and in space. But Ethan Fleischer of the Mothership just did an article about what is considered to be Unpopular Cube. And to me, it's kind of a riff on a conversation I was having with Sean Main on Twitter recently, also from R&D. Sean Main found like the mean of all Magic cards ratings, and just like posted like the 100 cards right in the middle, and I was like, should probably just draft that. It's like the most like that should be like core set limited.
Right, it's just they just print the 100 in the middle every time.
Yeah, it's a bunch of like diving griffins versus like.
But there's just giants. Like all of a sudden every year there's like a big campaign to like get broken cards downvoted to like get them into the mean.
Well, I love Gatherer comments, and again, for those at home who aren't familiar with this,
Gatherer comments are a stellar source of entertainment.
Unpopular Cube, and similarly to the Gather mean, which I was talking about, if you go on to wizards.gatherer.com, you can just kind of give cards a rating between half star and 5 full stars,
and you can comment about why you like them or dislike them.
And that's far more entertainment value than it is, let's say, useful information. But based on those Gatherer comments, you can really get an idea for what the Magic populace as a mass considers to be fun. Not necessarily even powerful, but fun.
You got to be careful because it's what the Magic community of subset of people who are willing to post ratings and comments on random Magic cards on Gatherer. So, this is not Crap Cube, like we said. This is not cards that the example you Adventurers Guildhouse, Great Wall, Pale Moon. Those cards are blanks.
Yeah,
right? They don't do anything.
Crap Cube has some genuine losers. Unpopular Cube still does stuff.
Unpopular Cube, the rule is 2-star rating or lower. And that could be for whatever reason. This is just what the community as a whole has put on them. And then attempted to be as interesting of a format, as possible.
Still carve it out, find a format in there.
So this is definitely a fairly inexpensive thing to put together from the looks of things.
Yeah, I should have done a little more research and see what the most expensive card.
Well, a lot of these cards are really old, so it's really hard to how much does a Royal Herbalist cost?
Yeah, a dime.
How much does Angelic Voices cost?
Like 50 cents.
All right. So, I'm not going to go anymore.
Nickel
I'm afraid you're going to keep naming
a nickel
prices.
for defensive maneuvers.
Vacuum milk. So this is my biggest thing with the concept of the crappy cube, because that's been kind of a riff for years about, oh, well, you play the best cards. What if you played the worst cards? My issue with it in general is that I play Cube and I care about Cube and I talk about Cube and I tweet about Cube and we do this because I find Cube really fun and I like playing with the cards and I think it's interesting. Crap Cube, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to put a cube together. In general, you gotta get the cards, you gotta keep them together, you gotta, the whole nine. It's a lot of effort to then make an experience that players will not enjoy. Other than this is a great one shot. I would do this once. If this is a Moto, a queue on Moto that I could enter,
man.
I would fire one of those off, and that would be it.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't want to
April Fool's Day joke.
I wouldn't want to build this and spend my money and spend my time and energy and effort to make this, and then carry it around and be like, "Hey, everyone, play my shitty cube. It's funny.
Are you done
the
having
cards
fun
are all
playing
bad." It'll make you appreciate other cards.
So this is probably for an audience that's gone a little deeper in Magic. It's ironic. My kind of angle is slightly different. I just wouldn't want to be the guy to build this. I definitely want to be the guy who's around to draft it.
I want to play it once. I don't want to build it.
I would play it many times because I get a lot of enjoyment out of the subpar cards of Magic that just never see the light of day and are 10 to 14th picks in draft that you might have had to scoop in a deck once in a while. But I wouldn't want to have to go through all the effort. Zombie Cube was just kind of fun enough that it was this is something we can come back to. People that don't cube a lot still get the concept. It can be a lot of fun having a different kind of play experience. Where this cube is much more about what's the layer underneath the layer? What's what really good limited is. You know what really good constructed is. You know what core set limited is. You're familiar with those things. You played a lot of them. This is the layer just underneath that layer. You've gotten underneath the cheese and the sour cream, maybe through the beans. Now you're what's that fifth layer? What is that?
I don't know what that fifth layer is.
No one does, and that's where you find things like Unpopular Cube. So for me, it seems like it'd be a lot of fun. I think I could go really deep on this thing. It does have Arc of Blight in it.
It is funny to see the occasional overlap. I briefly kind of looked at this and be I wonder how many of these cards I have played in a non-limited environment. Aladdin's Ring definitely jumped out at me. Arc of Blight, a former actual cube.
Yeah. Two quick side stories. The faster one being first time I ever cubed with Evan Irwin. He cast Bloodbraid Elf, and our Bloodbraid Elf into Arc of Blight, which was awkward. And the second being back when Eck and I played Magic at F&M against each other, and Eck was bad.
Uh-huh.
I said back when, as in past tense. He had a mono-black control deck with a Miser's Aladdin's Ring in it.
He was playing 4 DTs. You play wherever you wanted.
Alright, sorry. Effectively 5 copies of Aladdin's Ring.
Oh, yeah.
And he definitely won a mirror match in which I, duressed him, sludged him. He untapped, sludged me, untapped, echoes me, untapped Aladdin's Ring.
Just went to town.
And then I had my hand in my hands for the next 5 minutes as the game quickly ended.
Yeah, some of these cards, Hundru, I remember that guy.
Yeah, I played that guy in Onslaught Limited. See, again, for a lot of people that are playing Magic for a long time, Classic Cube is oftentimes a callback to
old limited formats.
Or Days of Old for many ways. I mean, I got Sylvan Library is my poster card for Magic Days of Old that you now kind of get touched back on. And I think that Unpopular Cube is a different kind of flavor of that, where it's oh man, I remember One time I had a draft deck where this was my 23rd card.
Ruthlaw Bear.
And then I drew it, and I played it, and I won a game with it. Like, you remember those times.
The Sacred Bell?
That card's really good.
Yeah, that's got to be like a first pick of this thing.
Hey, Eck is now just dissecting it.
Yeah, now I'm going.
he's completely left. Wow, how is Stalking Assassin community rated under a 2? That used to be a popular card.
It's blue-black. People hate it.
Well, Lady Orca.
And Lady Caleria.
Yeah, but Lady Orca was a sweet EDH deck, and you always knew which one it was because the little box had a picture of an Orca whale on the front.
Right.
Yeah, it was a good EDH deck. It's a 7-power guy. Hits 3 times, bam, you're dead.
Yes.
So
that is how magic works.
Well, no, commander damage.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, I guess I'll close out this topic while it continues to peruse the Searing Flesh, very popular. Anyway, check it out. Convince one of your friends to build it for you because you don't want to build it.
We've been talking about adding this card.
I don't think we were. I think you were. I really don't remember.
Okay, maybe I was.
Yeah.
I was maybe just talking to
I think that Singing to Takanuma was like a counterpoint that you had to something I had. I don't think I actively.
You were talking about Bogdan.
I was. I'll still talk about Bogdan. I'll talk about Bogdan right now. So there you have it. Check it out. Convince one of your friends to build it because you don't want to do it, and then go deep into cube drafting or just Magic in general, really.
So, one of the things we wanted to talk about today that we haven't actually talked about yet at all, despite the fact that we've been talking for an hour, is we've had a lot of comments and questions about things like combo in cube, and people want to know things like we don't play Mind's Desire, or why not, what combos are good in cube, what aren't good, what defines kind of combos in cube, how to support them, when to go deep on things, when not to.
I was just trying to see what the top of the show notes.
Yeah.
If there's anything else really super useful up there.
So
initially, I thought this week's episode was going to be more about kind of the basic archetypes. We'll go over, we'll mix an aggro deck in cube and aggro deck. We'll mix a control deck in cube and control deck. What are things to look out for those things? And of course, thankfully in cube, still the richness and the pureness of Magic. The third leg, or the last corner of the triangle, is combo. It's not so much mid-range. Mid-range does exist in cube, but long ago, kids, it was aggro, control, and combo.
That was the triangle of the metagame.
Those were your angles of attack, and now things have changed differently. But thankfully in cube, we still have combo. And obviously, when starting to talk about combo, we start to go down this rabbit hole where it's like, well, what's really a combo, and what do we have that maybe other cubes don't have? Where is their intersection? Where is their deviation? And again, what is a deck versus what is like 1 or 2 cards?
And also, how far is too far?
With comboing?
I
feel like we've gone pretty far.
And I feel like there are things that we actively do not do in terms of combos because other cubes have done them. Magic Online cube being a primary offender. Things like the Storm combo, talk about that.
I think we have good reason for that. That's a good place to start. I mean, what popular combos? What are the most popular combos that you think we don't represent? We don't play.
The one I get asked about more often than anything else, and I think that's mostly because we don't play it and the Magic Online cube does, is Mind's Desire, and I think that this is an archetype that they put in the list on Magic Online and tried to support Storm in different ways, and people liked it, people didn't like it, but it was part of that draft format. And then seeing other cubes, maybe it's not present, or when they're building their own, they feel using the Magic Online cube as a jumping off point, they have to include Storm.
It's an awkward intersection for cube and Magic history, because again, we're very much about Magic history. We want to represent a lot of those World Championship, those winning decks.
Don't get me wrong. Full disclosure, Mind's Desire, the card, is my favorite Magic card in history.
I would have not gotten that right.
The individual card of Mind's Desire is my favorite card. Mind's Desire decks are my favorite constructed decks to play.
Even the Spoils of the Vault ones we used to play back in the day?
That was the best one.
Oh, it was the worst.
That's because it's the first.
It was literally the worst.
It was the first one.
Literally the worst one.
I absolutely love Mind's Desire. And it's something that if it were viable to support in cube, I would want to support it. Um, it just isn't. And the problem is that one of the biggest things with combo in Cube in general is that this is a draft format. All the cards, need to be to some level contested by other people, and the best Cube cards are the ones that fit into a bunch of different decks. The more narrow a card is, the more powerful it has to be, but it also has to be still interesting and worthwhile for both the drafter for playing as well as the drafting process. The thing with My Desire is there are so many you need, because the My Desire deck actively does not want the vast majority of Magic cards that are normally in a cube, but it does want,
or in most Magic decks, really.
right, but it does want a very specific subset of Magic cards that are not normally in cube that no other deck would want.
Which makes it kind of like this stupid treasure hunt, where you're just like specifically on the lookout for cards being in a draft that nobody else wants, only you want.
I think that, because like the majority of times I see Mind's Desire or Storm in general supported in cube, there are a lot of rituals people put in.
Dark Ritual of all the rituals is the only one that skirts the line, where it's like,
well, it's so powerful.
Turn 1 Hypnotic Spectre or part of this combo. You're never looking at Rite of Flame, Pyretic Ritual, Desperate Ritual, even Seething Song that has powered out many an Arc Slogger back in the day, and been like, I might want to pick up that card. That could be a useful card. I might need that for something. It's always like, that's a blank. Just keep on shipping it.
And meanwhile, the Mind's Desire drafter is looking at packs going, is there a ritual or a card draw spell in this pack? There's not? Sweet. I have nothing I can take here. Or, oh, there's a bunch of cards? Well, I have to take this ritual instead because there are only 12 in the entire cube and I need all of them. So, I just think that while My Desire is an interesting and fun combo deck, and you could certainly make it a cube, like, you could absolutely make a cube where My Desire is a viable deck. The problem...
They have those. They're called combo cubes.
Right. The problem is that in a normal... Trying to fit My Desire into a normal cube is so disruptive to the normal drafting setup that you're going to have in terms of how players evaluate cards, that it's going to be a net loss in terms of enjoyment for the entire group. It's going to make drafting less interesting for one person. It's going to put a bunch of blanks in packs for everyone except one guy. And sometimes it's not even going to work. Like, sometimes you're going to go through this all this pulling of teeth.
You fall into the same traps where it's like, do you play a 360 card cube with 8 people and you know that the tools are all out there? Do you play a 600 card cube with an 8-player draft and you don't necessarily even know all the tools are out there? And that's, we're not even counting like just playing a Tendrils or just playing an Empty or just playing a Brain Freeze. But you've covered it. I mean, there's all these just very narrow cards. There's not enough overlap. There's not enough going on with all the rest of Magic. And I think that our cube does a very good job of making sure there are a lot of non-creature-based strategies. There are a lot of just other things you can do in cube, and it doesn't have to be just, I'm either the creature decks or I'm the combo spell decks, storm-based or not. Yeah, you've buried this one. This one.
So compare My Desire, which is kind of what people consider a traditional combo deck, something that people ask about a lot, with something like the Recurring Nightmare deck, which is very much also a combo deck.
So before we leave this topic, is there any other popular combo decks that we just do not run? Do you it has to be popular? If it's not coming to the top of your head, not brimming. It's not like
we run a lot of combos.
We don't run Ironworks.
Yeah, we don't have the heavy. We don't run like the Tolarian Academy Metalworker deck.
But okay, but I'm like
the Mono Brown.
Again, looking at Magic's history, looking at combo decks, ones that could be replicated in a limited environment, mostly singleton environment.
Raya Backer. I'm sorry, can't pronounce your name. Dredge is basically supported at this point. It's very close.
We're bringing it up. We're actually having
it's becoming more and more of a thing.
Drawn-out conversations about Sylvan Scryings and Teleria Wests and Expedition maps and crop rotations.
All in the goal to put Bizarre Baghdad into play.
Yeah, I don't really want to add green to the Bizarre Baghdad style deck, but I think that in order for us to get the right amount of tutoring, we might have to. All of a sudden it becomes that's
This is a talk for another day.
Actually, it's part of this conversation. It's down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's down at the bottom. But compare My Desire to a deck like Recurring Nightmare or Living Death, which kind of functions similarly.
So now we're getting into not just cards, but combo-centric cards that are so strong.
Build around me. So,
and it's important to delineate between Stoneforge Mystic Batterskull is a combo. It is a very good combo.
But not a combo deck.
It's not a combo deck. You're not like, oh, I drafted the Snapcaster Mage.
They're good cards, but they're not
deck.
build around me cards.
And they're not going to they're not a revolving win condition. They're not the centerpiece, the focal point, you want to find it to make the thing happen. Cube is littered with 2-card, 3-card, 6-card combinations
interactions and synergies
that are very powerful. Like, we didn't add, like, Squirrel Op to this list. We could have added, I mean, that's like fringe. But, like, the card opposition with cards similar to Squirrel Nest function as a combo.
Sun Titan stuff.
Chaos Orb.
Sun Titan Chaos Orb. Like, so, meanwhile, though, a deck like Recurring Nightmare or a thing like Living Death.
Both cards I would consider to be build around me combo cards.
They're things you go very deep on and get rewarded for.
Which of those can we bring up for the people?
I will do that right now.
Sorry, I don't want to steamroll your thought. Go on. Tell me more about Recurring Nightmare, the deck, and how it's different from Mind's Desire.
The difference is that while Recurring Nightmare and Living End are very clearly build around me cards where you want to find this effect in every game and play it, tutoring is still good. Card selection, things like that, trying to find your combo pieces, like Recurring Nightmare, Survival, Living Death, or Living End, or whatever, those kind of cards. That's the meat of the deck, besides your combo pieces and your tutoring and things like that, are cards that a lot of people are going to want and are interested in. It's cards like Shriekmaw, it's cards like Skinrender, it's cards like Bone Shredder, things that are desired by other decks, desired by other people, not necessarily purely, well, this card is only good in the Recurring Nightmare
You
deck.
could kind of have a functioning Magic limited deck without Recurring Nightmare.
Right.
But Recurring Nightmare is the engine for which the win comes from.
Yeah. Recurring Nightmare is a card where the earlier you take it, the deeper you can go on it and get rewarded for it. But if you're just playing like some black and maybe some green or whatever, if it shows up, it's going to be very good. And I think that's just the difference. You can't take a Mind's Desire in the middle of Pack 2 and be very excited. But you can see a Recurring Nightmare pretty late and say, well, I'm already playing Swamps, now I can really focus on
it's still a value card at that point.
Some 1/8/7s.
But I think that what makes this a combo build-around-me card is having access to things like Yosai, Palancron, Kakusho, even. And those are the things that are going to make it from, like...
Where it just wins the moment it hits the table.
Or, like actually locks them out, or is, like, just its own engine with which to win the game. And all of a sudden, all these other elements of the game just fade into the background. Mm-hmm. Like, Kakusho seems like the most innocuous and the least of an auto-win. But it's like, well, you've just had a life swing. Like, you can afford to take the hit. You were draining them without attacking them. There's all these other elements of the game that just fade into the background. You are no longer worrying about them. You just need to generate the mana to make this thing.
Yosai is the very clear lock.
Well, yeah, that's the stone. That's
the lucky.
That's
lock.
your Nutter Butters right there. Palancron, to a lesser extent, you kind of have to have a third kind of piece of the puzzle going with that one, but it's a fine engine.
Yeah.
How about Living Death? What to me that card is so, I wouldn't say easy. Well, yeah, it's so easy to make it one-sided, to kind of build your whole game around this one sorcery, even when you're not playing against creature decks. Obviously, best case scenario, it's Damnation You, and I guess Living Death would be the best example. Mm-hmm. Living Death myself. That's what you're setting up for. That's where against all the creature decks, that's where you want to be. But against control decks, it's just like dump all the stuff into my graveyard and maybe cast some creatures into their counter spells they have to deal with. Right. And then this is just like the finish.
So you can go extremely deep with a card like Living Death. We have Undercity Informant, things like Bazaar of Baghdad, Increasing Confusion to try and mill a bunch of guys into your graveyard, and try and go that way. Alternatively, you could just kind of play this as, a Wrath / anti-counter like control deck in your guys, oh, you Wrath me? Alright, Living Death, get all my guys back. And again, it's a card that rewards you if you take it early and can build around it, but it's not totally dead if you see it late, and it doesn't require a whole bunch of specialty cards.
It can play well in just the I happen to have some creatures in my deck kind of card. It's a little harder to control, and there are a lot of times where you look at the card and you're like, so I cast this. It just kind of like changes the boards. It doesn't like wipe a board or necessarily reinvigorate your own board. But the card is so powerful that it leaves cards like Withered Wretch and Izumi Graverobber in the cube. It makes enablers like Intuition and Gifts Ungiven even more punishing when you have access to this card in your deck. That it really, to me, it becomes something that I will take early and I will build around it, looking to make a deck out of it. I think we even did an MTGO draft video where we did that. You ended up having like a 4-creature deck, and it wasn't quite the classic. You don't remember that draft?
Yeah.
It was like Gristlebrand.
Right. It was like
you'd be living deathing to rat them and get back Gristlebrand.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
So, and living as this is kind of a typical thing that you see a lot of in cubes. There's usually a recurring nightmare kind of deck, some kind of recursion in black. It's not necessarily pure Reanimator. Now, Reanimator is another form of combo.
This is the combo deck that skirts the line, I feel like, the most.
Yes. And it's the one kind of that we get, people say, oh, well, you play Reanimator, but you don't play Mind Desire. Those cards are also really narrow. And my argument is that I don't think that's necessarily true. Reanimate and its ilk can function perfectly fine in a lot of other decks. Any deck with creatures or playing against creatures, Reanimate, Animate Dead, Dance the Dead, can target both yards. So, you kill your opponent's guy, take it, put it on your side of the battlefield. You killed my creature, alright, I'll get it back. It's not always going to be the best card, but it certainly has its function and its use.
And they're just value spells. The Pyretic Ritual is in no way a value spell. Animate Dead can always be a value spell. If you're playing creature-based Magic, these cards can be very good. I mean, my favorite example of Reanimate being just one of the most powerful cards in Magic was a PTQ top 8 in Ancient Extended, where I was playing Reanimator, and I had Necroma, and that Necroma was tacking. My opponent had a Mother of Runes and a Whipcorder. Yeah. Try to guess when this was. I mean, he kept tapping down my Necroma with his Whipcorder. So I Sickening Dreams for 2. He moms to protect his Whipcorder, pro black. Then I reanimate his Mother of Runes and use it to give my guy pro white and win the match.
Yeah,
only losing one life, which was also key.
The flexibility of a card like Reanimate, card like Animate Dead, really means that, again, the examples that we're giving here for our combo decks in Cube that work are cards that you can take early and you can kind of draft around and kind of force.
And are powerful enough to do so.
Right, but are not total blanks by the middle of pack 2. If I'm playing Swamps and I see a Reanimate late, I'll probably take it.
So the difference between a value Reanimator deck, or a deck that happens to have Reanimator elements, and the combo deck that is Reanimator, is you are going to be expelling all of your resources to try to cheat a big guy into play as early as possible.
Right.
Now that means that, like if you see Lotus versus Jet, you're going to want Lotus. You're going to want combo enablers. You're going to be taking those things to make it happen. You're going to be playing the Una's Prowlers. You're going to be taking the Undead Gladiators.
Anything that lets you discard automatically just shoots up in value.
And again, I think a lot of people, when drafting the Reanimator archetype, can kind of get caught somewhere in the middle, and they don't want to necessarily commit to the combo, when if they did, they could have made it happen, or they do it in the wrong way, and they just get over the top stacked up with too many discard outlets, or too many fatties.
It is. Quick aside, it is not possible to have too many discard outlets. That is the hardest part of the entire deck. It is trivially simple to get giant bombs to put into play.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
It is moderately difficult to get reanimation spells. And it is an active effort to get enough draw, discard, or tutoring. It's the hardest part.
You can't get enough tutoring, I'll give you that one. But that's true of any deck.
It's the part that people always... And I just did this. I just played Reanimate like 2 weeks ago, and I had...
You should tell them about that turn you attacked me with Psychotug.
Yeah, that was sweet.
It was so lucky.
I had, plenty of... I had like 5 reanimation spells, and I had a ton of good guys, but I only had like 3 ways to put them into my graveyard. And that's just not enough. And that's the hardest part, is finding,
Did you 2 win that draft?
Yeah. I lost to Chameleon Colossus the card.
Oh, that's right.
I was really relying on Baleful Strengths to block for a couple turns, and it was not doing it.
You that Shadowborn demon.
Akroma could not race.
Well, you start to see it there. That's kind of the difference. I think Reanimator kind of skirts this weird line where it's half dozen of one, 6 of the other, whatever. What's at the top of this list? Because I kind of did it by color. Oh, a little bit higher.
You really want to talk about that card?
Dude, it's a real deck. It's a real combo deck.
It's a card, but I don't think it's a deck.
You're not even at the top of the list. That's why I thought you were talking about something else.
Oh. Well, let's talk about this thing. Yeah. So,
for those listening at home, we were just fumbling around a bit inside our show notes.
It's alright.
Increasing confusion is more than just a choice. It's a way of life.
I was unaware that this is such a...
This is a deck.
Deal.
How many times do I have to beat people with this card before you know it's a deck?
I'm not saying that it's not a good card. I think it's an excellent card. I'm not sure if it's a full deck. But go on. Why is this a full-fledged combo deck?
Because all you need to do is live, cast this card. That's game. And you get to cheat so many other tutors. Like, you can entomb this. You can, obviously, intuition it, gifts ungiven it, and you can't go wrong. Because what are they going to do? Put it in your hand or put it in your graveyard? Doesn't matter. This is a combo deck to me, because there are so many tutor enablers, combo enablers for this, that it pushes it to the point where you can do it consistently, and you're just playing like any kind of shell control deck that eventually mills them with increasing confusion. And it's a fair... The difference between this and playing a card like Jay's Memory Adept or Sword of Body and Mind in our cube is that it plays fair enough like any kind of control deck would, where it's getting you with a spell in a one-shot kind of scenario, and there are still outs to it in the form of Eldrazi. Like, these things exist, and you still get to play Magic. It's not like those other things we just mentioned. So, to me, Increasing Confusion is, at this point, its own combo deck in Cube.
Okay. I think of Increasing Confusion more as one of the best finishers in a lot of decks.
So this just any control deck can play this card.
Any deck that can produce a blue mana symbol is probably pretty stoked on this card.
Any deck can just find this and cast it itself. Or not even find it. They will eventually get it.
Sure. It'll show up. And if it doesn't, then it's fine.
I don't think that's a universal truth.
Actively searching it out is obviously very good. Like, this card is just very, very powerful. Double Fireball, effectively, is quite a thing.
It's so weird because it's not that.
No.
It's kind of like tickle you, and then you're dead. Like, the turn you get like milled for 5 or 6 or something, you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
I hope it's just land so I can drop my good cards.
That's one of the worst feelings is when they do it for 3. You're just like, oh man, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's gonna ruin me.
I'm not even behind enough in this game to worry about casting this. For some.
Alright. I know you've wanted to talk about it.
So again, we don't take these things lightly. There are a lot of just great card combinations in Cube.
Mm-hmm.
But Revelark is a deck. It is a combo deck.
Revelark is absolutely a deck.
Is it a combo deck?
I mean, there are certainly combos with Revelark.
So you got to go deeper than just like Revelark in your graveyard, body double on the battlefield. That's not a combo deck.
That's not good enough?
No, that's just a 2-card combo. That's your Stoneforge Batterskull all over again.
Okay. We have to go deeper.
In order for this to be a combo deck, you need to have the body double, the Mirror Entity, and the Revelark. And then the wild card in the form of something like Gitu Slinger, Venser Shaper of Savant. It can't be a creature generator because they'll still all die to the Mirror Entity triggers. But so my point is that this is a combo deck because you're already drafting this great shell of this like tempo-y kind of control mid-range deck. And then just out of nowhere, you can just like slip trip and be like, oh, I've assembled Voltron.
Right.
And again, not super hard. You're going to hear a recurring theme with a lot of these decks. Intuition, gifts ungiven.
Right. The tutoring is certainly powerful, and decks that can take advantage of the tutoring is obviously very good. Revelark is a card where a lot of times it's a value guy. You're returning Mana War and whatever else. Obviously, the best being things like Karmic Guide.
You go pretty deep on a card like Karmic Guide.
Karmic Guide is very good. There is certainly an infinite combo with Revelark. But, there, again, this is a card where it's got varying degrees of how crazy it goes.
Conversely to those Mind's Desire decks, where you're balls deep or you're nothing,
Right.
Revelark is often a great, and this is one of the reasons I love this card, is you can draft a great mid-range creature deck, a great aggressive tempo creature deck,
And just like slam Revelark in it.
and then just all of a sudden be like, oh, there's the body double. Oh, there's the mirror entity. It's all come together.
Still had all of these.
Even just a nice, just casual Goblin Settler can just out of nowhere Armageddon your opponent. No problem. But I think
Speaking of a guy that we can get with Revelark.
the cousin and a card that you'd want Revelark to enable the combo version of this deck is the Kiki Jiki. We do support this combo deck mostly because there are some very powerful creatures that just happen to make it go off.
Enter the Battlefield effects have gotten better and better as time goes on. So a card like Kiki Jiki constantly gets better as a standalone thing.
Right, and we've talked about the idea of putting in like a Deceiver Exarch into the cube, and then we realized, oh shit, that card's blue.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out, but we're not going to need you.
I still think it should be.
You want Deceiver Exarch in the cube?
Over Phantasmal Bear?
We're not having this conversation.
I know.
How about Village Bellringer?
No.
I really just want to say, you'll ring my bell. That's just really, I just really want to say that. I mean, that card was so much fun in Innistrad Limited. Like, I would want that
Taco Bell Ringer.
on the on deck of all fun cues. Village Bellringer is right there.
Okay.
But we've got the big three. We've got the Restoration Angel, the Zealous Conscripts, and the Pestermite. They're all there to play with this guy. So you've got the mono red version, you've got the red white version, you've got the classic red blue version.
The All American, just slam them all.
And generally, that's what you want to do. Once you've decided to assemble Kiki Jiki the combo,
you're looking for all hands on deck.
Yeah, and to kind of like build this deck, Kiki Jiki is almost like a passing favor. The Zealous Conscripts and the Restoration Angel; those are very high picks. Those are just cards you want to have. Like they're Zealous Conscripts.
It's one of those things where, in a lot of decks, in a lot of combo decks especially, you see the combo card first, the Tinker, the whatever it is.
Already getting ahead of ourselves.
You're taking them first, or as early as possible. And then you're looking for the cards to support this powerful spell. And the Kiki Jiki deck is almost the flip.
It is definitely the inverse.
If you see Kiki Jiki early, you could certainly take it. But because of Kiki Jiki's mana cost and just kind of how he's approached in Cube...
And we're still living in a pre-devotion world.
Right. He tends to go later, let's say. So I'm more of the mind of like taking Zealous Conscripts and Restoration Angel high because they're very good cards, and then keeping my eyes peeled for the Kiki Jiki after I've already got the cards that are excellent with it.
I think many episodes we had like a pick one, pack one that had like a Pestermite Kiki Jiki in it, and that was definitely part of the conversation where it's like, well, if you were going to do it, how would you do it?
Right.
And I think we were firm in the, well, you take the Pestermite, and the triple red 2-power guy will probably come back. Yeah. Kiki Jiki definitely has been dropping on the power level in Cube over
Which is
the years.
weird because the things that he makes copies of just get strictly better all the time. They keep printing insane Enter the Battlefield effect creatures for him to come.
Which means that spells, while still like lagging behind in the race, just have to get a little bit better. So there's all these things that would coincidentally just like blow up Kiki Jikis left and right. While they have to deal with better creatures and magic.
Right.
Again, in the Wild West of Dragon Cube, creatures never died because no one cast them. Mm-hmm. So it was real easy to be like, sweet 6-drop, okay, Kiki Jiki it.
Go nuts.
Yeah.
So...
Still a combo deck. Kiki Jiki is very much more a combo card. Yeah.
I think that's really where he shines at this point.
Definitely.
His days of a value player are kind of behind him, but that's not to say it's impossible. I just think that it's not necessarily where we're at anymore.
Now, you've mentioned it a few times. We might as well go over it. The good old Tonker deck, as X puts it in together.
I can't. It's dark in here. I can't type. Oh, okay.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. One of the classic combo decks of all of Magic, Tinker. It's a tough one to build. It's play some artifacts.
Tinker is. I played this last week, actually.
You had like an amalgamation, didn't you?
I had a 50-50. I had Tinker and Tooth and Nail. which was an awesome combo because I was tooth and nailing for Inkwell Leviathan, Sphinx of the Steel Wind.
You had Blightsteel too, didn't you?
Yeah.
All right.
I had all the winners. That deck was really fun.
I narrowly escaped defeat in round 3 of our draft.
It was a good match.
It was a very good match.
That entire draft was awesome. I mind-slavered someone to death when they had Yawgmoth's Bargain in play.
Nice.
I went...
Turn 1 Garrick Wilds. No,
Turn 1 Garrick Relentless. I had some crazy plays. That was a fun deck. So anyway, Tinker is one of the ones where, if ever there was a narrow card in Cube, it is Tinker. And it has survived for as long as it has on pure power level alone.
Definitely when talking about fair and balanced cubes, this is a card that quickly gets the axe.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not like it can... this card can't play a lot of ways.
This is probably the most narrow card in our cube, or one of the most narrow cards in our cube, and it gets a pass because it requires very little support outside of cards that we would be playing anyway.
Do you play good artifacts?
So
do we.
There are very, very few artifacts in the cube that we are explicitly playing for Tinker decks. So sliding it in is just like one slot and it opens an entire archetype, and I think at that point that it's worth it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and plus when you think like powerful Magic history, you think Tinker.
You better be thinking Tinker. I think that this
one writes itself. I mean, you don't really need a good playbook on Tinker.
I think cheap artifacts. It needs some expensive artifacts.
Obviously, there's no higher limit to cheap artifacts. It helps that we play in a power cube environment, so you kind of have those extras in the forms of Moxen and things like that. But let's say you aren't playing in a power cube environment, but you are playing Tinker. You can't stock up on enough under 3 casting cost artifacts in your Tinker deck. And again, for us, since we're in a larger cube, we have the Sphinx of Steel, as Eck has mentioned, the Sphinx of Steelwind, Sundering Titan, Inkwell Leviathan, Blightsteel Colossus. Even just getting like a Wormcoil engine can be really good. And
Wormcoil is excellent.
And then you can go kind of like the other kind of like combo within a combo route and start to go for things like Mindslaver and Memory Jar.
Well, in the one I drafted most recently, very explicitly, like, I had, like, the big guys, because I obviously was going to tinker into win conditions, but I also had Tooth and Nail and a bunch of ramp to try and go that route. But I also had the Mindslaver for an alternate route of attack. I had the Nivinral's Disc to go that direction.
In your blue-green can't-kill stuff deck, important to have.
Right, but a tutorable way to deal with things. Having Tinker also being a tutor on top of a win con kind of combo piece allows you a lot of flexibility that a lot of other cards wouldn't necessarily give you.
I think the only level of dicking that we don't have in the cube would be the Tinker for the Crucible of Worlds with the Strip Mine.
Right. I mean, we don't play Crucible.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's like the one thing we're like, okay, we're good.
We're not that.
We don't need that. We don't need that.
Which is surprising, but that's our limit. Apparently.
I work a little bit for my LD. Yeah. Segueing between Tinker, though, would be... Oh, no.
Another one-card combo.
Slightly different direction.
Another one-card combo.
Yes. And I think very much the master of the build around me.
This is definitely the first pick or bust.
No.
It feels like that a lot.
I have third-packed... been past this bad boy and made it happen.
That is impressive. That should be an achievement.
Yeah, I think I was trying to draft... It might have been a Tinker deck I was trying to draft. It might have just been a control deck, a Planeswalker control deck. It might have even just been like an Eldrazi other card to be named later on this list deck. But Oath of Druids, baby, I love this card.
I love Oath of Druids, too, because it creates... When you take it very early with the intent to build around it... first, separate. It's a combo card because the value Oath is... a thing that is occasionally tried and usually not with the best of success.
Was it like 2 weeks ago that your opponent had Oath? I don't know what's better. In the same match, your opponent goes Forest, Mana Crypt, Oath, go.
That was a questionable play.
Do not do this at home, kids. Do not do this at home. And then in the same match, he got the Oath active. It's his upkeep. He's about to Oath. We're all waiting with bated breath. Discard pile. Goes discard pile. Flip over next card. Goes discard pile. Flip over next card. Basking Root Walla.
I've definitely had people Oath Huntmaster of the Fells into play, which is also a questionable decision on their part. So, you really want Oath to be the thing that you are trying to do desperately, and not
Right.
as a value.
All
card.
of a sudden, cards like Stirring Wildwood, Raging Ravine,
Right. It really
become
changes.
really good.
It completely changes. It adds like an additional like rule set to your draft of like now you do not take creatures that cost less than 6 mana. You just don't take them, and now you have to draft a deck without them.
Oath of Druids, I think the perfect kind of barometer.
It's one of the most interesting decks to draft.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. I think it's so great for Cube, and it's not infallible. And
No.
a lot of people are like afraid of it; they won't put it in their cube. But I think this card.
It's been very fair.
Oh yeah. Oh,
It's very disruptible. You know, you're still relying on a 2-mana enchantment, and you know,
don't have a lot of backup plan if it doesn't go perfectly.
right?
It's like stall. That's why you want like the Slag Storms, the Fire Spouts.
Oh, everything you can get your hands on.
All the kitchen sinks, and if you're
You got all this room for activities because you don't have all these dudes.
Right. I mean, again, it's a really fun deck to draft. Now, again, the barometer of where you kind of want to like start to evaluate your guys. I think Frost Titan is right about the bottom end of Oath targets.
I like Frost Titan because it keeps their guy in play, and locks
So it's
it
still
down.
a 1-to-1 ratio.
Right. So like, if it killed it, they might then get to Oath, and
right,
that's no good. But if it taps it down, all of a sudden they don't get to Oath, and they have to play another guy to deal with Frost Titan, so you get to Oath again.
Yep. So that's the baseline. Once you can go above Frost Titan, and Frost Titan's the kind of card that in the Oath decks you'll cast.
Yeah.
If you don't find it, that's a good way to like get back in the game.
The Oath deck trends to 5 colors. Or,
Yeah.
like the more colors is more common in
Yeah,
Oath.
definitely. When drafting Oath of Druids, start to skew towards fetch lands, start to skew towards dual lands.
Any deck fitting.
Like I could go Oath of Druids into like Misty Rainforest scrub land, and I'll be very happy. Like, I think like that's just where I want to be.
And I think that you just got to find as much, the Oath deck just is so hungry for every brainstorm and every strategic planning and every...
Brainstorm also very highly valuable in that deck.
Sometimes you draw the cards you want to Oath into. You need to put them back.
Or, I mean, even Axis of Ancestral, if you're just like, put 2 lands on top of your deck, okay, trigger my Oath during upkeep, bye-bye those lands. It's important to note that we do not play Forbidden Orchard in the cube, because...
We play no explicit Oath enabling.
Beast Within.
Beast Within is just a very good card.
It's a good one. It's another one.
That's literally that's the Oath combo, but like that's also just a card that we were playing before Oath was in.
I gotta tell you, the list of like the top 5 cards after I first pick Oath of Druids, Beast Within is on the top 5 cards.
Absolutely.
Ironically, Regrowth is also one of those, because either you turn your library upside down and you want to get like the good stuff back you turned over, or you need to get your Oath back because people are playing Disenchant.
Right.
So
it's a very important game 2 card.
Main deck, like card evaluation. Again, any cards you can put in your cube that help change up the card evaluation, that really start to like just have the opportunity to do that. I mean, one thing that really makes cube kind of stagnant is like, Hero Bladehold, it's always a top 5 pick in the draft. It's just always, that's how it is.
You gotta mix it up.
Yeah, and Oath really does a great job of doing that. I feel like we've done this one justice.
Yeah,
definitely. Regrowth is a card that just goes through the roof in my card evaluation when playing Oath. Kind of the bastardized brother of both Tinker and Oath of Druids would be Natural Order.
Kind of the love child of the two of them.
Now, when I think of a Natural Order combo deck, I think of mostly things that are like Raphellos and Woodfall Primus oriented.
I was going to say, I think of decks with Mana Elves and Terrastodon in them.
Exactly. Now, your backup plan, because you're playing green, you don't necessarily always going to have access to that Natural Order.
Can we just, as a quick aside, as a PSA to the cube, anyone listening to this, if you're not playing Terrastodon in your cube, and you're not playing like a Peasant or Pauper cube, put Terrastodon in your cube.
Interesting.
That card is very good.
You chose a very strange soapbox to get on top of.
Terrastodon is excellent.
Yeah, it does. It plays a lot of ways.
Oh, so many ways.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think I went like over a year after World War came out without putting that in the cube.
Yeah, but it is not coming out anytime soon. That card is very good.
Yeah. So the thing about Natural Order is, again, we're playing a combo deck here. We really want a way to be able to get the combo actively. And Natural Order has the backup plan of kind of being like, well, you want to play all the one mana creatures out of green, so your deck can function like a classic ramp deck. to combat the fact of not drawing in natural order if you don't have access to the mystical tutors, the harmonizes, the Garrick primal hunters. I'm trying to think of like the other green cards that will help you draw more cards.
Or at Viper.
Because yeah, it's hard to say like, oh, we play the natural order combo deck.
I think that in our cube, the one card that could go in to be a natural order combo card that is not in is Progenitus. And that's a card also that was in like the Magic Online cube as like a very explicit. No one is like putting this into play normally. This is only to be cheated in.
Yeah.
Usually with natural order.
If we had Progenitus in our cube, it would probably just be the card glued to natural order.
Yeah.
It's like if you draft the Nissa Vein, you get some Nissa's Chosen. It's like, oh, if you draft the natural order, here's your Progenitus.
Free Progenitus. So, I think that's just too narrow. But I think natural ordering for things like Terrestrion, things like Hellkite Overlord, other just excellent reanimator targets is just fine. You don't necessarily need the absolute craziest, best possible thing that no one's ever going to play with otherwise.
Yeah, natural order. I mean, for more of the combo side, that's where you get the Hellkite Overlord. You don't have access to that in the just green ramp version, or maybe you do. It's green ramp. You can do a lot of things.
You get deep.
I really wish there was an elf that tapped for red. A 1-mana elf? Because we have a 1-mana elf that taps for black. We have a 1-mana elf that taps for white.
I see what you're saying.
We have a 1-mana elf that taps for green. And we even have a 1-mana elf in the form of Noble Hierarch that taps for blue. But we don't have the explicit, like, fire elf.
Right, which have Birds of Paradise.
Like the closest teases we have are green and 1. Like, there's Sky Shroud elf, which is the one that can filter infinite white or red through it.
Yeah, well, and there's the Quirion elf.
Quirion elf,
like,
we can just name a color, yeah.
Yeah, but if there was like Elves of the Deep Shadow, there's Elves of
for red, right?
Elves of the Burning Shadow.
Yeah, that sounds like a card that should have been in the dark, right next to Elves of Deep Shadow.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like Brothers of Fire, those kind of cards. Orcish Lumberjack is close, but we want to play elves. We want to play guys we can sacrifice to.
Right. He has the important ability not green, which is relevant when talking about natural order.
Not the important ability orc, which I'm sure will become an important one of these days. So we hit on what was the next? There was we keep circling the toilet bowl of this one.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. Well, I was like when you did Tinker, I was thinking. I was thinking that guy, but
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we're not in a rush.
Yep.
So,
Denique attack.
Typing
is a little
our Tonker deck.
So, Sneak Attack has a lot of similarities with things like the Reanimator deck.
Now, it's important to point out, anytime you can get like multiple of these elements and combine them into the same deck, the better off you're going to be.
If you could have Tinker, if you could be like Tinker, Reanimators, and Sneak Attack in a deck that has like Sundering Titan and Inkwell Leviathan and maybe a Blightsteel Plus or something, like that's awesome. Because now all the parts are working together.
I think my favorite recently was Oath of Druids into Gisela, untap, activate Sneak Attack, put Inferno Titan into play. I lost very quickly.
Sneak Attack is a card where if you're explicitly just looking to Sneak Attack and you're not necessarily piggybacking it off of other combo decks, it has the added benefit of not being so desperate for discard outlets like Reanimator, where the deck only functions if you have ways to put guys in your yard. Sneak Attack, in fact, explicitly wants them in your hand, so you're looking for kind of different tutoring and different card draw.
A card like Enlightened Tutor is spectacular with this card, because not only can it find the combo piece, but they can go find your Sundering Titan, your Blightsteel Colossus.
A lot of times it'll find a win con with it.
And the Boros version of this deck is really good, as I kind of mentioned earlier. I mean, another way to kind of like, I can get you with Greater Argadon out of nowhere with this guy. Inferno Titan out of nowhere with this guy.
Yeah.
Etc., etc. Sun Titan even, depending on what you got going. Sneak Attack was one of those cards that we didn't play it for a long time because it felt really narrow. But now that there's all these other ways to kind of use fatties in the cube, it fits right in, and it's its own deck. It doesn't have to be glued to one of these other cards.
No, I've seen it be successful on its own.
Oh, and it's so frightening. If you just like have that card on the table.
It becomes a very like terrifying chicken with your opponent.
And in a way, we always talk about how, especially Eck recently has been talking about how you don't want to just have some do-nothings. You don't want to just like tap out for a spell that doesn't do anything. But you get a lot of that back with Sneak Attack, because immediately your opponents who aren't like first level thinking are going to just have to be like, okay, well, we're going to have to kind of change up our game plan.
Even if you don't put anything into play right away, playing Sneak Attack and passing with a red open all of a sudden, every brake light on the planet comes up for me. Like, it's just full engine stop. Because I don't want to swing into just some crazy blowout, and then who knows what wackiness is going to befall me. But I want to be prepared, kind of shields up for whatever is coming at me.
It does seem like the last 3 or 4 of these we've touched on as full blown combo decks have kind of revolved around fatty creatures and a thing.
Sure. Well, I mean, fatty creatures are very powerful, and they keep printing better ones. So anything you can do to put them into play as fast as possible is always going to be good.
And we don't currently play Show and Tell because somebody thinks that card's awful.
But we do, however, play Eureka, which is related to Sneak Attack in natural order.
Now, Eureka is probably the most narrow. I would probably say the number one card that could fall off this list and just be part of another deck.
It's also one of the most recent entries. Eureka is a much more recent addition.
We've been playing it for a year.
Yeah, but compared to a lot of the
Alright, compared to 5 years or whatever. Eureka is the one where you have to have the most immediately. You can't just have this one card and do this thing. And that's why it can be a deck, but it's probably not just its own deck.
It is, however, one of the funner cards because it is Eureka just gives Eureka just gives you such free reign to be as greedy as you want because that's the whole point, right?
Dude, in the last 3 months, how many matches I've walked up to where it's wait, how does this work? I put something into play, and he doesn't choose something to put into play, and then it comes back to me, and since I don't choose to put something into play, it's over. It's well, no, it's you each have an opportunity equal. So if you say yes, he says no, the process repeats. And if you say no right after he said no, even though it was your opponent saying no to the previous round, it still keeps going. And now your opponent decided to play yes because you put an Ulamog into play, and now he can put Control Magic into play, which he wasn't going to do before.
Yeah.
And no one's Eureka. All right, I'm the player who casts Eureka. I don't want to put anything into play. All right, I'll put this Control Magic into play. Would you like to put anything into play?
No pass. But games of Magic that involve Eureka resolving are either the least fun or the most fun, and there is almost never an in-between.
That is...
And I do enjoy that level of swinginess, and I've been on both sides of it. But, I have, cast Eureka and won in very immediate, convincing fashion, and that's always fun. I have cast Eureka and lost to my opponent putting stuff even better than mine into play.
I have a pretty good Twitter picture of that recently.
I have lost to Eureka, people putting crazy stuff into play. I have beaten Eureka by going over the top of them.
Okay, so let's say what's important here. What makes this a combo deck?
The human nature for greed. I mean, you just want it. So in decks like Reanimator, decks like Tinker, you have to be mindful of the number of targets you're working with. Especially in Reanimator, you don't necessarily need 12 reanimation targets. That's way too many. You're just going to draw a ton of blanks, right? You only want 4, 5, something like that, and you want them to all be very powerful. With Eureka, the sky is the limit. Clearly, the goal is to find Eureka with as many of them in your hand as possible that do as many different things as possible, and you just want to go as big as possible, and just you put in Ulamog and you put in. You
guys played Hypergenesis back in the day.
I love that deck. That deck was really good.
It was very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Put an Oblivion Ring or 2 into play. What else would you put into play? I can't remember.
In the Hypergenesis deck?
Yeah. There was some, once it started to get really weird, once it was no longer just, here are, 3 really good fatties. It used to be, just really basic stuff,
It used to be Progenitus, Sakashima Student.
Well, that was the good one, but there was also we got Hellkites and Angels of Despair for a while.
Well, eventually it got super deep with I know it got banned, but there are versions of the deck that play Chancellor of the Annex for the counterspell part and stuff like that. So anyway, so that's Eureka.
Bring on the little guy. You want
to talk about the little guy?
We'll talk about the little guy.
Say hello to my little friend.
Good old Goblin Welder.
Another recent addition.
He's a one-mana dude.
He does have the ability Goblin, which is quite good.
Now, this is a guy that actually picks up a lot of artifacts that would otherwise be kind of slip through the cracks when it comes to combo decks. We're talking about your smokestacks, your tangle wires. memory jars, which you might play in Tinker.
This is definitely the memory jarriest.
The memory jarriest of all combo cards in our cube. Since we don't have Storm, we do have just Milieu with Goblin Welder Memory Jar.
Mm-hmm. And that has happened.
Yeah, this is
Goblin Welder is one of the most difficult to pull off.
Because you got a 1/1 for 1.
You have to make this 1/1 for 1 live, and we cut Lightning Greaves.
I want to bring Lightning Greaves back.
It goes in and out.
It's mostly out, though.
Also, a difficult thing with Goblin Water is Goblin Water is an excellent engine, but getting it going can be difficult. Sometimes it can be tricky to get artifacts into your graveyard to start that going. Things that you would want to put back into play.
Yeah, I guess.
It's very easy to get a Pyrite Spellbomb into your graveyard, but you don't necessarily want to be like throwing your board away to recur that.
Yeah, here you have Precursor Golem and Wormcoil Engine are like the primo.
Oh, absolutely.
Cream of the crop, like you're going to get
turning Wormcoil Engine into Precursor Golem. That's like living the dream.
Slightly better the other way, but we'll still take it.
We'll go both directions.
Yeah,
you just cycle.
Yeah. Once you get there, like, all of a sudden that smokestacks on 3 is no problem.
Yeah.
That's game ending.
So
we don't run Mishra's Workshop.
We did not run Metalworker.
We did not run Metalworker.
We did not run Tolarian Academy.
True. So this guy may be a little more of a fair combo card in our cube than a lot of other cubes.
He has a little less of a home than he could. We could go very deep on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, we could put in all those mud cards from Vintage, but then I don't think they would get drafted very often, and they would lead to a lot of, like, very narrow one-sided games where you got, like, the just Workshop into the Lodestone Golem into that's it, so that's the only kind of thing. We do not have that stuff. What is next on our list? We're coming near the end.
Yeah, we're almost.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Undercity Informer.
You want to talk about that guy? So this is kind of a...
This should be a one-shot kill, is what this guy should be.
So, Undercity Informer is something else we've been trying recently. And this is a card where he kind of plays with a lot of other pieces. This is... Well, when we say the Undercity Informer deck, it really has a lot more moving pieces than a number of these other cards. Whereas, like, Tinker is a Tinker deck because it needs Tinker. Undercity Informer, the deck requires... Or really thrives off of a number of different synergies and moving pieces. So on one part you have Undercity Informer, which is kind of what you're trying to target to do. You can use this either to mill yourself to set up your own graveyard, or mill your opponent as a win condition. And if you're milling yourself, you're probably trying to mill yourself into cards like Bloodghast and Gravecrawler as methods to recur. Get back into play so you can keep activating Undercity Informer. That way you can keep milling either yourself or your opponent. Other ways to abuse that would be things like Oath of Ghouls and Oversold Cemetery, which we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you're going to one-shot with this card as a combo kill, you're just playing like a token creatures deck. The slower, more grindy combo version of this deck is just the mono-black version with the elements like Bloodghast that Eck has mentioned. I like both. Neither of them have been very prominent in our cube experience so far. I think that the mono-black decks end up cutting Undercity Informer because they don't have enough of the combo enablers to make him reliably show up.
I got it to work once. I drafted. I full disclosure, I have not drafted the deck a ton, but I did draft it once, and I did mill my opponent to death with Undercity Informer.
Now, did you do it the slow grind turn after turn, or did you get him in with a one shot?
I got him into the one shot.
Okay.
I had Oversold and Oath of, so I eventually just got enough black creatures into play where I was like, okay, you have 10 lands in play, which means you probably have 7 left in your deck. I've got 8 creatures, so
this is the turn.
Yeah, and it worked. So
I think this guy is pretty underrated right now. You're going to see him go really late if you have him in your cube and are able to use it. And
he's not very popular.
And against a lot of creature decks, you can kind of grind out the game by doing some blocks, doing some trades, using his ability. And against a lot of other decks, you just got to go for that combo kill, where he's just he's almost a one-shot enchantment. But I think those things are there.
Another card that, especially in the black grindy deck with Undercity Informer, another card that is kind of its own deck but also works well there, Bazaar of Baghdad. This is a card that
This is the up-and-comer, I feel
right.
like.
This is we've recently added this. We've been toying around a lot with it. We've been trying to make it better and kind of playing around with it.
Beware the Vengeful Pharaoh.
So, clearly, Bizarre Baghdad requires you to really, really want to do things with your graveyard. It's not a card advantage engine. It doesn't have for mana. You have to be abusing the discard in some way.
Similar to how Dredge is its own deck that plays a different game than Magic is in the tournament formats where Dredge is legal. Bizarre Baghdad and Cube is going to eventually make it to that variety. You've got your Icarage, your Bloodghast, your Gravecrawler, your Undead Gladiator, your Stinkweed Imp, your... I feel like I just barreled past a few things. Anything you get back. Again, this guy plays great with Welder.
It's a reanimation enabler.
Plays great with anything with Flashback.
Flashback, Madness, Circular Logic, Fiery Temper, Basket Ruwala.
And the plan is to bring in more tutoring for this land, so we can do even more with it in the future.
I think that it definitely has a lot of promise, and I think that it's... I look at Bizarre Baghdad almost exclusively as a black card right now, mostly because black is where not only the majority of the graveyard enabling is, but where we want black to go is effects like this. So I think that that's very popular, or it's going to be very powerful.
The Oath of Ghouls Oversold Cemetery engine does play very well with this card, and was kind of the impetus for when we initially put it into Cube without really thinking about more of its combo implications. But now that we have the more of an opportunity to explore what we can do with the graveyard, it just opens up new areas to be able to do stuff with it.
Life from the Loam.
Also getting work done there. And even its most basic elements, draw back 3 lands.
Yeah.
Boom, draw 2 cards.
Yep.
Or draw 1 and your Loam.
Yes.
If you had like a 100-card library and
that'd be real good.
The game was going to go long.
You don't get a whole lot of activations of that before you gotta be careful.
No. I hope you're playing another combo to finish the game out.
I
guess Seismic Swans would be one we kind of forgot on there.
Well, Seismic Swans kind of hasn't really been a thing.
I mean, it's still a deck. All the elements are there. It's just like an awkward 4-card combo. And that's why Swans exists, right? Swans is a combo card.
Swans is a sweet card.
Swans is a sweet card.
I routinely play Swans as a 4-card.
Remember that time that someone Urza's raged this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, in their own deck. Sorry, I should point that out. They're like, man, I really need to draw 3. Raged by Swans. We're like,
It doesn't work that well.
No, not so good. Yeah, Stefan, one of the rotisserie drafts we did, he drafted 4-color Swans.
Yeah, I mean, I think that...
I drafted 4-color Swans this calendar year. I could only deal 18 damage in 1 turn, but...
It's been a long time since I've seen this deck come together, but it's certainly still a thing. You know, we play Life from the Loam. Those 2 cards together are just very good. It's just very difficult to put together.
Yeah, because it's a 4-color.
This is one of the hardest decks to make work, because it's ostensibly minimum of 2 cards, more likely 3, specific cards: Seismic Assault, Swans of Bernargle, Life from the Loam, with no other things being acceptable substitutes.
Right.
And
there's no workaround.
3 separate colors, 3 to 4 colors, depending on how you analyze Swans. So it's one of the hardest to find tutoring for. You have to find fixing. You have to find tutoring. You have to find ways to not die. You have to find ways to protect this. It's one of the hardest decks to come together. You could certainly do it, and it's certainly powerful. And I like Seismic Assault on its own, and I like Swans on its own, and I like Life from the Loam on its own, which is why all those cards are still there. They're not there explicitly for this combo, but it is a 10 out of 10 on the difficulty scale to draft.
So if you pull it off, full marks.
Full marks.
Even the French judge will give you a good score.
Yeah, the A for effort if you can make this work. So,
I think we've covered them all. I don't think we've left out a deck that we specifically feel is a combo deck. Now, there are a lot of card combinations in Cube. There are a lot of things that come together. That's a combo. But I don't think there's specifically a deck.
I don't think so. I think we got all of them. Because that was a lot of combos. That was an hour of combos. It's a lot of...
Not quite. We got 5 minutes of buffer to talk about sweet things like From the Vault 20.
Mm-hmm.
Who was super excited about that. We do not play Birthing Pod. That is not a combo deck in our cube, and it's kind of a sketchy combo to begin with.
The problem with Birthing Pod is it looks on the surface like it's going to be good, because I'm playing green, I'm going to play creatures, I'm going to go up the chain on them. The problem is that making the chain with no breaks in the link on the fly while drafting is very difficult.
Just having it be cohesive enough is almost impossible.
Right.
Oh, I only got one 5-drop. Oh, it's turn 4 of the game, and I drew my 5-drop, and I haven't drawn my...
Now I can't go to 6.
Or I just can't, like, move up.
It's just very... It's very hard to make...
When we played Pod, 9 out of 10 times, and I'm saying, like, the deck, like, I drafted, like, 10 times, I was just like, if I got this Pod out of this deck, I just have, like, a really good value creatures deck.
Pod felt too cute. And it's rare that I say that. But it just... Every time I saw Pod, it just was like, okay, now I need to find 4 drops. Okay, now I need 3 drops. Now I got 5. Now I need 7.
And they just
don't have a 6 drop yet.
Yeah, heaven forbid the packs just don't even have, like...
Right, sometimes you just don't see
a rug-colored 4-drop.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't see the cards, and it's all of a sudden it breaks the whole thing. Too much has to go right for Birthing Pod.
Belcher, also don't think that would happen. Trying to think of how that would happen.
Like Mana Severance?
Ugh, talk about a one-trick pony.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Land Grant? Man, think about playing a 1-land cube deck.
That would be awesome.
Or like a 2-land cube deck, I don't know.
That'd be really cool. But, I mean, not good. Really cool.
I mean, we're probably adding Zombie Infestation Treasure Hunt, so we're like looking to play like the 30-land cube deck.
Well, spoilers.
So I'm trying to think if it would be at all possible to go the other direction.
We do have the Protean Hulk combo.
No, we don't.
Well, the cards that Protean Hulk goes and gets.
I mean, a bunch of virulent slivers?
Well, I was thinking the Carrion Feeder. Remember the earlier version of that deck?
What did it loop with?
It was like Carrion Feeder, Revel Arc, and something.
Well, that's
Body
6
Double.
casting cost worth of shit.
Well, no, because you go get Body Double and Carrion Feeder, then you sack the Body Double as a Protean Hulk, and then you go get like Revel Arc and something else.
Okay.
That so, we have all the parts.
So we have an extremely convoluted version.
Right. We have like the hardest possible way.
Yeah, we don't have any of the clean versions like Disciples of the Vault or which would also be really, really rough. Tooth and Nail kind of touches on a lot of the other combo cards. I think that we were talking about things like Eureka, Natural Order, Sneak Attack.
We don't have a lot of the classic Tooth and Nail. We don't have like
we don't
Methodros
have
Vampire.
We don't have the combo version.
Right. We don't have like Methodros Vampire. We have Triskelion, but not Vampire. But Tooth and Nail gets a lot of these combos.
Yeah, Tooth and Nail was like is always like
Kiki Jiki Best of Right. Hey,
he's always the co-pilot to a lot of these things we were talking about.
Yeah.
Isn't there another? I feel like there's another Infinite Triskelion. Oh well, there's
Micaeus the Unhallowed.
One thing we could add is the Spike Feeder. All we need to do is add Spike Feeder to the cube, and we have... Well, that's just a
with Archangel of Thune.
Yeah, that's like a non-deck, though. It's just you would need to have Triskelion, Archangel of Thune, and Spike Feeder. Then you have Infinite Life, Infinite Counters, Infinite Damage. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, Spike Feeder's not the absolute worst, but two other... High Tide Bubbling Muck?
Well, we don't play those kind of, like, Mana Accelerant combo decks. So we spent, like, the first 20 minutes of this section talking about... the Mind's Desire-esque cards and how narrow they are. And cards like High Tide and Bubbling Muck, one guy might take them at the draft, if anybody.
Yeah. Those fall into the category of, like, Storm, to me, in a lot of ways, where, like...
I agree.
You have to have so many narrow cards.
Turnabout does one thing. Untaps your lands to win the game. And if it's doing anything else, it's just delaying losing the game.
Yeah.
That's all there really is to it. So we're butting up here right on the 2-hour mark, which is about where we cap off the show, so I guess we'll transition into the outro. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in tonight on the live side. It's always nice to have somebody to chat to. And for everyone listening at home, you can still find us on MTGcast as well as ecomon.blogspot.com. Check out the Cube list on that blogspot as well as at cubetutor.com, where you can draft our cube right now, help the AI learn the pick order, post your decks, post your drafts. Email us at draftcube@gmail.com with your questions, concerns, draft scenario questions, pick orders, anything right there. You can find me on Twitter at Tristan Gregson all the time, 24/7, as well as Kyle Eck at Young Mecha on Twitter. Are we missing anything?
I don't believe we are.
Yeah, just barreled through all of that stuff.
Got taken care of.
So signed Hymn to Torok. new foil from the Vault 20 inventory. Which is going to be? I'm still on the fence about it.
I don't like the new picture.
You just okay, all right. Because I'm a big Quentin Hoover fan. And with his passing,
Yeah.
I feel like
It's
that's
a
the way we
memorial.
go. Yeah, I feel like that's the way we go. So that's
On that uplifting note.
yeah. We'll leave you on that thought. Enjoy your From the Vault 20s, everyone. It's 20 cards. It could be.